Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our weekly market update. Today, backed by popular demand, I've got Shane Kayla from last week. So, here in a snowy Monday morning with a fair bit of snow down around the hills in the valley. So just checking in. How has the market been in property management? We've got a few properties available at the moment, so some busy team members running around keeping up with all that at the moment. So.
Yes, we are very, very busy at the moment. I think we're running out of room on our board of all the properties we've got available, and we're about to add another 3 more. So keep your eye out. But yes, there's definitely a range for a lot of prospective tenants to choose from, really.
And I'd like to say good news for tenants, but there seems to be just as many applications still strongly coming in, which is that demand is still very, very high for a lot of those properties at the moment. But it seems that maybe a couple of the units still not as popular
unit ones
in smaller houses.
The 2 bedrooms or 1 bedroom properties are not going as quick. It's the family homes, so the 3 to 4 bedrooms.
Okay. And what's been happening in the sales market this week?
We had a little bit of a quiet week this week. We had 1 property advertised online in Ranelagh, and we had 2 open homes on the weekend, which were really good. I think the rain may have scared a couple of people off on the Saturday, but we had about 3 or 4 people at each open home there, so it wasn't too bad in that sense, and looked at a couple coming up next week as well. So,
3 or 4 groups seems to be about the standard now for open homes, a bit down from our 10 or 20 groups last year, but certainly seems to be settling. The things that are priced about right seem to have around that sort of amount of property people through, and some of the ones that we are getting the odd 0 and 1 through, some of the ones that are not quite as attractive to people now. So certainly it seems to be settling in around that sort of number. So.
Yeah, I think buyers are aware that coming into spring as well, things start to pick up a little bit more, so they may be holding off to see what other stock comes out from there as well. But
And another interest rate rise, so we've had a bit happening there. So still keeping that hesitancy there in the marketplace a bit. Obviously seeing the gap with somebody's got a fixed mortgage now. Typical investor or somebody where we might have had 3 or 4 years of rents growing every year by a little bit, and the mortgage going down a little bit and interest rates going down, and you're paying a bit off your mortgage. That gap's been going in the right direction for investors for probably 3 or 4 years now. We've sort of actually seen 3 or 4 months where the interest rates are going up and the rents are still the same. So those fixed costs and some of the rates and some of the other things are going up at a pretty steep rate as well, and your TAS waters and things. So that gap from a return on investment is actually changing a little bit there. I think that's just something to be aware of. It's not quite as attractive, and as the interest rates are going up, that means you're actually getting some return for cash in the bank. So the gap where it's been huge at say 4% for a rental property versus 0% in the bank. Now we might be getting people who are getting a couple of percent in the bank, and it might be 3.5% for that same property as a return. So that gap's getting much, much closer. And that's sort of part of that hesitancy there as to some people with that return investment. Others, I think we're just seeing, looks like from all of the media outlets so far that we're seeing is a bit of a softer start to spring than right across the country, Sydney, Melbourne markets, compared to what everyone was expecting right now. So I think there's a lot of people who are just sort of waiting to see what happens. Generally, where the interest rates stop and how that supply and demand sort of starts to go. But interestingly enough, while there's not been as many, there's still almost like the lowest amount of property available to buy. So the supply and demand, even though the supply is a little bit lower, the demand is still leveling itself out because there's just not enough houses. So, and we're not getting that rush that probably a lot of people are expecting to start getting a lot more properties not selling and a lot of properties on the market. So it's I think interesting little period where if this continues and the supply and demand levels stay similar right through spring and summer, that'll keep the prices nice and high. It'll only be if we actually get a lot of properties come to market that don't sell, will be the only thing that could have an impact, because the supply levels are the lowest that have ever been in Tasmania by a long way at the moment still. So we've certainly got a nice buffer on that from where things have been. And even though the market's been crazy, the transaction volume hasn't been as that much different to a traditional market. So it's just been not enough properties available. So as those transactions are there turning over, that's the thing and the transactions and the supply and demand are the things that influence the price more than a lot of other factors that people think about. So I think we're probably in for a bit better period than people were probably thinking, but certainly that hesitancy out there from everybody, what the media is so focused on at the moment is certainly going to be something there. But once that stops, and hopefully we might see that once everyone stops spending on some other things, we might see that happen, and potentially that might be a good indicator is going to be heading into the Christmas season. I think that everyone will be watching, the RBA will be watching to see if this Christmas we spend less than we have in the last 3 or 4, and if we do, they'll think that they've done their job properly, and if we don't, then I think, hang on, we'll keep putting the interest rates up until they learn their lesson. They're just Australian people. So anyway, so look, that's enough of me rambling on about that sort of stuff, but it's just good to think about some of those factors that are at play there and in the background. So that's kind of what's been happening. Keep an eye out. We have got a few properties coming on, probably a couple less this week. I know there's a couple next week and a few coming up, and there's 3 properties this week. So
just this week.
Just this week. So certainly, tenants get those applications in, because the chances, while there's a few around, there's a high chance of getting approved for something at the moment than probably what they might have had for a little while. So
that's right.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week on the update.